Today I've got another 5+2 baking for you. This is where I take 5 staple ingredients through every single bake and add 2 more ingredients to it to make a whole host of different things. So we are going to be making cherry and almond scones. Don't worry if you don't like cherries or if you don't like almonds. There is plenty of ways you can alter this to your tastes. I was going to start off by showing you a photo of all those staple ingredients you needed, but unfortunately I was so wrapped up in my baking I completely forgot. So you're going to have to make do with this list that I'm showing you now on the screen, and unfortunately this really terrible picture of your 2 extras, because I'd already added in the almond essence, not that I used the whole tub, and I'd already chopped all the cherries at the start. There you go, we can't all be aesthetically pleasing all the time for social media, but let's get on with the bake. So if you don't like cherries and you don't like almonds, then you can easily replace the chopped cherries with any dried fruit that you like. So it could be raisins, it could be apricots, anything that you think is going to work in there. If you don't like dried fruit, just take it out. You don't need them in this recipe. These scones are just as nice when there's nothing in there, which is actually one of my favourite ways to bake them. And if you don't like almonds, then you can always put in vanilla essence instead, which works really nicely with the plain scones. I started off by measuring 175 millilitres of milk, and then I just pop this in the microwave for 30 seconds. It doesn't need to be boiling, it just needs to be tepid. After that, I'm getting everything into my bowl ready. So I've got 350 grams of self-raising flour and then 85 grams of butter. And to that, I'm just going to add 1 teaspoon of baking powder. You can get your spoons out if you want to measure it. I just tend to eyeball these things. And then I also need 3 tablespoons of sugar. Again, I just kind of stick some in. If you've seen any of my videos before, you'll know that I am terrible at not actually measuring things out with measuring spoons, but there you go. I'm just so used to it, I just throw it in the bowl and then give it a little bit of a mix around just to start to get some of that margarine just broken down into that flour, so it creates a little bit of a crumb. It doesn't have to be too much, but you don't want big massive lumps of margarine in there within your scones. So once that's started to break down a little bit, I'm going to put my cherries in, and these are cherries that I have chopped in half because I don't like them whole. I'm putting them in at this point because it just means that they get coated in flour, and I've read somewhere years ago that if they get coated in flour it stops them from sinking. I don't know actually how true that is in scones, because scones is a bit of a thicker mixture. I think that might be for in cakes, but I still do it because if it works, it works. And then I'm going to add in my milk. Now I like to put my almond essence into my milk because it's just easy to mix it in then and incorporate it into the bowl. So once that's in, you just mix it together. You don't need to over mix scones. It's just a case of getting it all combined. Don't overwork that dough. As you'll have probably noticed before, if I need to put anything on a floured surface, I'm always putting greaseproof paper down on my table first because I cannot stand trying to wipe up flour. So I'm just going to put a piece of baking paper down, sprinkle a little bit of flour on, leave some in the corner ready for the cutter because that will help it to stop sticking, and then just literally pop this on. Now, it will very often say in a recipe, roll it out. I never even bother rolling it out, to be honest. Scones need to be nice and thick in my book, so I just tend to pat it down with my hands, and that works fine. Once you've got it to the thickness that you want, take your cookie cutter. Mine have been used so much that the diameters have actually rubbed off, but it's not a massive one. I like them quite small because then I can have 2 rather than 1. For some reason, when I make them big, they just go all over in the oven, so the small one's the better for me. Just stick the cookie cutter straight down in and don't twist it. Apparently with scones, if you twist it round, this is where they all start to then fall over when they're in the oven. Once you've got the remnants of the mix, just push that all back together again, pat it down as before to about the same thickness, and just keep repeating it with your cookie cutter until all the mix is used up. Once you've done this, then you just need to put it onto, again, a lined baking tray because I am too lazy to be greasing all of my baking trays. And then you need to do a little bit of a wash over the top. Now, this is where some people will go, you can do an egg wash, but milk works just as well. And as I've said before, eggs are expensive. I very often don't have them in, and I've always got milk in my fridge. So milk works really well for this. Just give it a little brush over and then they're ready to go in the oven at 200 degrees C for about 15 to 20 minutes. Once they're cooked and looking nice and golden, you just take them out, leave them on the side to cool a little, and if you're like me, have one while they're already warm, because there is nothing nicer than a warm scone, and these almond and cherry scones really do hit the mark. I hope you enjoy them as much as we do, and I'll see you in the next video.